Well, it looks like the rumors are indeed correct, and we have an event scheduled for Monday, March 25th at the Steve Jobs Theater in Cupertino, California. Now, the event's titled It's Showtime, a throwback to 2006, when Steve Jobs announced the very first iteration of the Apple TV. In case you don't know, internally it was referenced as iTV. Now, given that we know the date and the theme of the event, the next logical question is, what is Apple going to talk about on stage? Well, let's unpack everything we know up to this point and see if we can put together a clear picture. I am Mike, and this is Tech 24/7 TV. Let's get started. First up, we have Apple further diversifying its services revenue with the expected launch of the Texture Magazine news service from last year's acquisition. Now, the magazine service is expected to cost $9.99 per month and will be integrated right into Apple News, which is the second rumored service that will get a paid tier of premium access to content like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, to name a few publications. It's also rumored that Apple News and Magazine will expand outside the original launch markets, which were the US, the UK, and Australia, to have more of a global footprint that match Apple Music and iTunes. While I absolutely love to read, I don't find myself having copious amounts of free time to read for pleasure anymore because, I have a family, I have a job, I do this. I often end up listening to audiobooks at a fast speed during household chores and working out and such. Now, who's with me on the audiobooks? Now, here is a pro tip, kind of just to deviate for a moment. If you are stateside, your local library has audiobooks that you could check out for free, and it avoids the cost of having to pay Audible or iTunes.
And knowing is half the battle.
It is no secret that Apple's been building an epic war chest of original content to go into battle with Netflix, Amazon, and HBO over your consumers' wallets and eyeballs. If we are indeed going to see a video subscription service at the March 25th event, and this subscription service is supposed to be an end-all be-all answer to those providers, the next logical question I have is, how is Apple going to differentiate the service from the competition so much that it makes me want to cancel these other services? Because at this point, unless Apple is going to make the service for free, I simply cannot subscribe to another one-off channel because I have subscription fatigue. And I imagine many of you feel the same way because you probably don't have a cable television subscription and you consume most of your content online. You probably pay Amazon $99 a year for access to 2-day delivery, and by extension, you're getting Amazon Prime Video, but who really watches Amazon Prime Video because the content sucks? And it's not like you're going to give up access to 2-day delivery because you're not an animal, right? You either have your own Netflix account or you're sharing it with a family member or a friend, right? And the final season of Game of Thrones is coming on in like 6 weeks, so you're definitely subbing back to HBO for 3 months because you're not going to miss the final season of Game of Thrones. Right there, you're paying between $20 and $30 per month when you factor in your annual Amazon subscription. Now, that doesn't include your music subscription from Apple Music or Spotify. It doesn't include things like YouTube Red or YouTube Premium or whatever the hell they call it these days. Nor does it include Dropbox or Google or even iCloud for your photos and documents because Apple can't give you anything bigger than 5 gigabytes of storage. Now, it is a significant amount of money when you add it all up at the end of the month, and even kind of obviously it's much more impactful when you think about it on an annual basis. Now, if Apple wants to compete for more of my money, and believe you me, my wife hates to give Apple more money, Apple will need to come to the event with an holistic pricing approach that is one monthly fee that includes many different services, something that kind of bundles Apple Music, iCloud storage, news and magazines, maybe even Apple Care or hell, Apple Books. And it would be great if it was one price that I paid once a month, much like my iPhone upgrade program payment. While I do think this is a very tough nut to crack, I do think Apple has pricing top of mind and that they will come to this event with inclusive pricing that considers customers, much like you and me, who are consuming more than just one or two of their services. Now, let me know if you're experiencing similar fatigue with subscriptions and how many there are just available in the comments below. Now, the question of pricing and a host of other questions are sure to get answered as the Apple leadership team takes the stage on March 25th. In addition to those new services, Apple should release the latest versions of its OS that go ahead and include iPhone, Mac, Apple Watch, and Apple TV. The updated OS versions will enable access to the subscription services, but it's really not quite clear how Apple will launch the television streaming service since the streaming service is not bundled in 12.2, and who knows whether or not they're going to go ahead and make it an app that's downloadable through the App Store or whether it'll be actually integrated into iOS. Now, on the hardware, Apple confirmed that this event will be live streamed, a tip of the hat, so to speak, that we should see new hardware as a very special guest at this event. As a side note, if you are interested, I will be hosting a live stream on March 25th during and after the event, kind of talking through the products. Hope to see you all there. Here is what we can piece together thus far. Apple started seeding the latest version of iOS and macOS betas in January of this year, and since that time, developers like Stephen Troughton-Smith and a host of all other super sleuths have been uncovering various bits of code that reference a new iPad mini, a 7th generation iPad, and of all things, an iPod Touch. We practically have confirmation from Apple themselves as they completed their registration for these new tablet devices in the early part of this year with the Eurasian Economic Commission. Now, unfortunately, it does not look like these new iPads will have Face ID, and they'll carry over similar styling as what we see today. At least that's what's been found in the betas thus far. Well, here is my biggest iPad question. If the current 9.7-inch iPad works with the first generation Apple Pencil, do we expect to retain compatibility with the new iPad and maybe even the iPad mini? Well, it isn't exactly consumer friendly to remove Apple Pencil compatibility, nor do I think Apple would make kind of a foolish move and make consumers upgrade to the newest Apple Pencil if they just purchased one last year. Now, I personally would love to see an iPad mini, something I throw it in my pocket that worked with the Apple Pencil. That would be fantastic. You'd have to have pretty big pockets, right? Like carpenter pockets. Using history as our guide stick, we know that every year since the Apple Watch was first introduced, Apple has refreshed watch bands in addition to leather cases and silicone cases twice a year in the spring and fall. Who knows, maybe Apple could throw us a curveball and release updated leather sleeves for the new iPad Pro in spring colors. Just not pink, please don't do pink. In addition to the hints of code that are referencing to the new iPads and the refreshing of accessories, Apple has a track record of updating the iPhone line to the product red variant in the springtime since the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus were introduced. Now, we already have an iPhone that is available in the product red, so that would leave the iPhone XS and XS Max to get refreshed in that product red color. I don't know how much sense that makes it from this standpoint. I mean, who's really going to buy a flagship iPhone starting at $999 in red mid-year unless they absolutely have to, right? Finally, rounding out the hardware, we have two very strong rumors that Apple's second generation AirPods are ready to hit the shelves in not one, but two colors. Unfortunately, it's not very clear if the AirPods 2 are going to hit the shelves day and date with the event, or if it'll be later that week as it's rumored by two different websites. Now, I'll be hosting a live chat both during and after the event on March 25th. I'll link it below in the description if you want to go ahead and nerd out with other Apple enthusiasts about products that just came out. Let me know what you're most excited for, and I will go ahead and see you on the 25th. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next one.